Get started, everybody. The last meeting of the year. Thanks everyone for showing up. Appreciate it. We'll call to order the Committee of the Whole for the City Council of Highland Park, Illinois, December 15th, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Center.
Present.
Councilmember Brockman.
Here.
Councilmember Ross.
Here.
Councilmember Tapio. Councilmember Littleworth.
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Here.
Mayor Rotary.
Here, we have a quorum. We have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole, which was held November 24th, and the minutes of the closed session of the Committee of the Whole, also held November 24th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thanks, those minutes are approved. We're so excited to welcome the Highland Park Community Foundation. You guys are just always joy personified, so it's great to welcome you.
And the foundation is good too.
So come on up, introduce yourselves, and tell us about the great work you've been up to this year.
All right. Well, Eric Ephraim, Board Chair, John Levy, Vice Chair, Terry Olian, Executive Director. We're honored to present again tonight, and I know that's part of our agreement, and we're happy to do it. Another great year for us, and really not too much different than prior years. I appreciate the city's support. So, thanks a lot.
Yeah, so this slide just kind of shows the grant application process. You'll know it's not too different than what you are used to seeing, or for those of you new to the council. It's essentially exactly the same as what we've always done. A little bit tweaked timeline, but essentially the same. So we go out, we issue the applications, they file the grants, we follow up, we have our cohort meetings, we divide them into 3 different cohorts for the roughly 60 applicants, 64 applicants, Terry? 4 cohorts, sorry, I said 3. And then we award the grants and then distribute in October. This year it was over $1 million.
You stole my thunder.
Sorry.
So yeah, 64 grants this year, just over $1 million, which is an 11% increase over what we did last year. We funded about 80% of what was requested, and again, thank you to the city for the $300,000. Obviously, very important for what we do. But also worth noting that that was $700,000 of money that we've raised as well. So you're supporting a strong organization that is well funded as well. You read the news, there are increasing needs, everything from childcare, housing, food. But we also love funding the things that are unique to Highland Park and strengthen the experience of living in Highland Park, the arts, military kids, youth soccer for kids who are on free and reduced lunch, robotics in District 112 for kids who are on free and reduced lunch. So it's an honor for us to fund all those and hopefully improve the lifestyle of Highland Park.
Eric, if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah. So this slide kind of breaks down really how we allocate, and we kind of divide into 4 different buckets or cohorts, if you will. Education received about $362,190 of funding from 17 different organizations, and of that, there was about 181 went to early childhood, and another 181 went to another 13 organizations providing programs for K through 12 students and general educational support. So that compares quite favorably to the year prior, where the early childhood received about $162,500, and general education received $145,350. In the creative and cultural arts, that's 8 different organizations, $130,750 this year, and that compares again favorably to the same 8 organizations, but $115,500 year prior. Senior services, 2 different organizations, $42,000, same 2 last year, $28,000. And then individuals with disabilities, 5 separate organizations, $65,000.
Excuse me, just one moment.
Councilmember Tapia is joining us from Miami. I'm not sure we should let him, but.
We can go down and join them.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know what I was thinking, but here I am.
Okay, thank you. Before we can continue,
Yeah,
we need to approve his participation electronically and confirm that he is who he says he is. I'll give him my usual question, which is, what's the best sport?
Football.
But he says it with
The
a
real.
football.
You.
Okay.
No
it's-
objections.
Any objections to his participation? No. Great, thank you. Welcome, Councilmember Tapia. We're hearing from the Highland Park Community Foundation about the great work they've done this year. All right,
Okay,
thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Thanks,
So
guys.
picking up on that, individuals with disabilities, 6 organizations, 65.5 this year versus 54,925 last year. So obviously, Human Services then is our largest, 28 organizations and $411,800 to 28 different organizations versus 336,000 last year, and 29 organizations last year. And that's divided into counseling, which received about a quarter, 111,000 versus 98,000, food insecurity, 54,000 versus 43,000, substance abuse and prevention, 3,500. General human services, 18 grants, 243,300, and that's again compared to 219,300, same 18 organizations last year. So, as Eric indicated, broad spectrum of needs, and the goal is to provide as much support as we can and to frankly increase it as the needs increase.
Wonderful, great.
So a couple other things to update you on. We are part of the Illinois Gives Tax Credit Program, which means your donation can actually get an Illinois tax credit. Not a donation, but a credit, and Terry can explain that in much more detail than I can. We've increased our champions, our corporate champions, our foundation champions. Again, Terry Olean has done a fantastic job in fundraising for that. It's really been a bedrock for our fundraising each year, so that's been great to see. And then we do our special awards, our annual awards, Highland Park Community Foundation Golden Apple, which we rotate between 112 and 113 teachers each year. Personal Achievement, which goes to a Highland Park High School senior. And the Jack Blaine Community Service Award, I guess sort of self-explanatory for someone who's done outstanding work in the
Right.
community. And so the last slide here is, like everything else,
It's not moving.
it's not moving.
It's looking for significant damage.
There we go.
There we go. It moved.
So like everything else, it's successful. It's a great team effort. We appreciate your support. You'll recognize a lot of names on there probably, neighbors, friends, etc. Maybe a council member on there too. And just appreciate your support.
Wonderful.
So with that, I guess we'll take any questions here.
Councilmember Brooklyn, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, well, I just want to say thank you for all the hard work you do, and it really is incredible going to those meetings and how many people are involved, and especially the associates board as well, how involved they are, and they're the next generation that are really learning the ropes. Then also the October event where you give out all the checks to these
the
great
reason we
people. It's
exist.
incredible. So just thank you for all you're doing, and I really always enjoy going to those meetings.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you.
And at the October, where we give out the grant awards, it's really nice because it's nice for all the organizations to get together, and a lot of them have built great relationships and partnerships out of meeting at our events and doing things together that benefit the community. So it's really sort of a nice synergy.
You guys? Sure. Councilmember Littler?
Thank you. I just have a question because this is a huge jump. I mean, you've always done a great job, and this is an even bigger jump. Can I ask what's different this year? Because it's really significant.
Well, one
Percentage-wise.
answer is frankly that the need continues to grow, and frankly, we wish we could do more. And couple with that, the fact that, our endowment is now in excess of $8 million and growing quite handily. So that allows us to do more. We continue to raise more. Eric hit on the corporate champions and the other donors. So you take those three things together, it allows us to, meet as much of those needs as possible. And frankly, it was a big goal of ours to cross that 7-figure mark this year. So we were happy to be able to do it.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
And obviously, the city money helps a lot too, so thank you.
We're happy.
Thank you for your
And
support.
thank you to Ravinia Festival who makes that
Yes.
possible.
Very much thank you.
We're all trying to go a lot and make sure that they.
Right, exactly, generate that income for them. Councilmember Center?
Amazing job. Thanks for everything you guys do. You started to go through this a little bit in the pie chart, but curious, sort of categorically, what kind of changes we're seeing, and what that means from a macro perspective, right? As we think about in the city, like where the true needs are going to be as we move forward.
You know, I don't know if the percentages over the years have changed a lot. I think they've been fairly consistent, and frankly, a lot of it comes down to what the organizations request and for what specific purpose. I'd say the growth probably comes more from more organizations who are doing things in Highland Park, something new that we haven't funded yet. So, I don't know, Terry, anything else you
I
can?
would, although I would also add from what we are hearing, that there have been some changes coming down the pipeline that I think are worrisome, that I think in the next 6 to 8 months will be pretty telling. Some of our grant recipients, just in the past 2 months, have really let us know that they are back to providing some essential needs that are above and beyond what their programs and services are all about. There was a great concern about SNAP benefits. It's a concern not only for children and adults and families, it's a concern for seniors. That would be one. Housing has really risen to the top in terms of a need.
Anything requiring federal support
Right.
is definitely something that we're being asked to fill some gaps or look at filling gaps.
And we know that there is a decrease in federal and state funding. That is coming. And our organizations, it's a conversation that we have often. We don't want them to become totally dependent on us. We need them to do their own fundraising. We need them to find grants. We need them to look other places. Some of them, though, maybe because of their size or because of history, they really do depend on us, and I don't think we want to give up that strong place in their budget that we hold. So we want to continue to meet their need. I don't think any of us would say that we want to cut back just to teach them a lesson or something like that. That doesn't make any sense at all. And the other thing that really came to impact many organizations this year were the federal activity, the ICE raids. And I was in a meeting with Gita very recently. There's going to be more activity in the spring.
Right.
So I think the next 3 to 6 months, it's a very concerning time for everybody. The other thing that I made a note of was Medicaid is changing tremendously. And that wasn't a threat. This is something that is coming to pass in terms of the work requirements, in terms of changes to the Affordable Care Act, and other Medicaid funding shifts. These are going to impact our residents, and they're going to impact our nonprofits.
Our board and our associate leadership, also one thing that I guess we could have mentioned for some of you that are newer, we have we're all liaisons with various different organizations. And so we meet with those organizations during the grant process, after the grant process, throughout the year. And we're constantly hearing during those meetings that, what is going on at the federal level is of grave concern.
Because a significant portion of the state budget also comes from the federal government.
Exactly.
So if they slash that money, it's just going to trickle down and impact them.
The need is great, and we're fortunate that we live in a community that can support a foundation like ours. And frankly, we know that we've become a bit of a model because one of our neighbors just copied us, right?
More than one.
More than one.
More than one. And I think they do say copying is the best form of flattery. So,
Right. Any other questions? Yes, Councilmember
Well,
Ross.
just to say thank you so much for what you do. It's such a shining example of good work in the community, and I've seen firsthand with a few of the organizations what the impact and how much they count on you. And I'm also thinking back some years when, and I don't remember the history terribly well, but some years ago when, I couldn't help thinking about it, when I was liaison from 112 school board to the human relations, which was a commission at the time, and they were overseeing some of the
Grant making.
grant making,
Yeah.
and it was really a struggle. And then you took it over, and it just they're doing such a beautiful job with that.
Right.
And are able to be so much more impactful than the small amount of money that they had to work with, so, or smaller amount of money, I should say. And, yeah, so thank you.
One of the things that we've been able to do, I think, is really pull our organizations together, not only at the October event, we have something in May, where the organizations are collaborating, which is beautiful in any circumstance to be happening. And they now look to each other for support, which is only to our residents' benefit.
The synergies are really cool to see while people are just chatting away. It's like, hey, let's be in touch, so it's great.
And they definitely do.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
your
much
continued
for
support.
everything.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is a conversation about the place of remembrance, the update and the budget conversation.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to introduce Emily Taub, one of our assistant city managers, and also Jasmine Alejandro is here as well, a social service specialist in our resiliency division. We have a staff report that's included in the packet. This evening, we will provide an update on the progress for a permanent place of remembrance. Since the communication to the council, we have reached agreement on the terms and conditions of the agreement with SWA, the design consultant, that we're planning to bring an agreement to the city council at our next meeting for formal consideration. So special thanks to Emily for working with the contact at SWA and our corporation counsel, Steve Elrod and Hart Passman, who've been working with us with SWA. So that matter is addressed. Actually, could you progress just one slide? But this evening, what we are looking for your policy feedback is establishing a budget just to help guide the next steps as part of the process. And then many months ago, we brought forward a recommendation from the Place of Remembrance Working Group as it pertains to fundraising. And so we're just looking for confirmation from the council on our approach for fundraising, or the fact that we would not do fundraising. So looking for your feedback on those two policy questions.
So just as we've discussed before, and as I know the council is aware, we just wanted to refocus on the three primary objectives for the Place of Remembrance. Place of Remembrance, we know it's going to be a deep, meaningful place for the victims, for families, and for the community, but these are the three primary objectives that were established for the Place of Remembrance. And just as an update, as our overall progress to date, where we've been and where we're heading with this process, we first started with location selection and community engagement in that process with a very extensive community engagement process, which culminated in a location recommendation from our consultant and from the working group that was then brought forward to the City Council, who supported the primary place of remembrance at the Rose Garden with a subtle secondary marker at Port Clinton Plaza. And then at that point, we moved forward to the design process. The city issued a request for qualifications for designers. We received a number of very impressive responses to that request for qualifications. That was narrowed down by the working group, in which point interviews were conducted, and a recommendation was made by the working group to move forward with SWA. And that's where we're at right now, is working with SWA on that agreement process. We then plan to move forward with the design process, a formal design recommendation, final design, and then construction. A little bit of an update on this project. As we were working through the design process, we worked with SWA and who brought forward a recommendation to split the design process into 2 phases. Phase 1 being project administration, really listening, discovery, community engagement, and schematic design, which is really an initial design phase. So it's really bringing those concepts, visualizing those concepts into an initial design and preliminary design, again, visualization and documents. And then phase 2 would be the full design development process, taking those initial concept designs and bringing those into formal designs, construction documentation, and then phase 2 would also include construction administration. And the reason for breaking this up, the recommendation to break up this process, is really the phase 2 is very, very difficult to estimate without an initial design concept. It's really very difficult to have design development and documentation until we have some concept of the scope of the design, and that would affect the cost of phase 2 significantly if we're looking at a simple design, a very complex design, and what that would look like as far as walking us through some of our commissions process that would be involved, such as the Historic Preservation Commission. Again, very difficult to estimate without some idea of whether we're looking at a simple or a complex design, so we do recommend breaking that up, beginning with a phase 1 agreement for just those initial phases, and then coming back with a phase 2 agreement once we have that initial design concept in place. As far as cost of what we're looking at, we worked with SWA on a cost proposal. Their proposal is $355,000 for those phase 1, which again primarily consists of those initial design and community engagement in the design process, and those initial visualizations, plus an additional up to 10% in reimbursable costs, such as any necessary travel needed or any printing or things like that that would go along with it. Phase 2, we asked for a very rough phase 2 estimate, understanding that this again could encompass an extremely wide range of services depending upon the complexity of that design, and that has a wide range of accuracy. Typically we see these phase 2 could be anywhere from a -70 or a -25% to +75% range of accuracy. So again, very, very difficult to estimate, but those final costs would be brought forward after a preliminary design is approved, and we're looking at anywhere from, consultant's estimate was anywhere from $700,000 to $1.25 million for the phase 2 estimate. And again, these estimates are for design, document preparation, moving us through our commissions process, not for any building costs. So we're looking at, again, just the design phase at these estimates. As City Manager Newkirk noted, we were planning on providing you an update on where we were at with the professional services agreement, but we have since this packet was put together and presentation was put together, Corporation Council was able to discuss with SWA and come to agreement on the language of the professional services agreement. So we are in a position where we can move forward with formal consideration of this professional services agreement at the next City Council meeting in January.
Great. Well done. Steve Elrod, that's for you.
They did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Corporation Council did an
Thank
amazing
you.
job trying to find a mutually agreeable solution here. We wanted to provide you an update again, just a reminder of what we do currently have set aside. We currently have a $1 million grant with no restrictions except for updates for this project. The restriction being it is for the Place of Remembrance project. We have preliminarily put that into about half into the 2026 budget and half into the 2027 budget, but that's in the preliminary capital plan is where that is. And staff, we are recommending and requesting direction on a preliminary budget for construction. We do believe that budget will help drive the scope of this project, whether we're looking at a very small scope project or a larger scope project. Again, ideas can be all over the board for this, so we're really looking for that budget discussion to help guide what this project could look like and what the design could take place and could encompass. So to give you a little bit of more information on what's been done before, we did update some research on some other memorials. Jasmine, Social Services Specialist Jasmine Alejandro, took the lead on updating some of this information. Then we do want to note that as we provide updates on what other memorials look like, that the scope really varies greatly between different memorials. They're everything from simple sculpture to very involved designs. And there's really no way to quantify what that looks like as far as, just aside from just maybe some initial information on what the land size of that, but the scope varies so greatly. And the costs were noted are really for building only and not design. So we thought one of the other ways to really help you visualize what these different scopes and memorials look like was with some pictures. So we did provide a few different visualizations of what the different memorials look like. Again, keeping in mind that these events are anywhere back from 95 to 2012 to 2021. So the design and cost and building costs at the time would, of course, change significantly over the years. If they were to be built today, they would look significantly different than what the costs were at the time. A few more that we're looking at, again, anything from simple sculpture in 2008 to Las Vegas is not yet built. They are looking at, you know, a 2-acre site as opposed to DeKalb simple sculpture. So again, looking at varying greatly. So again, brief overview of, we've updated this chart as information has been updated over the years of different communities affected by mass violence events, what the similarities were, and the time frame for building that memorial. Again, we're seeing everything from 2 years for a simple sculpture to over 10 years in Las Vegas to look at a design build for a memorial. So again, everything from $200,000 to potentially a $30 million memorial, depending upon that scope. And a little bit of additional information, the National Mass Violence Center did, at our request, reach out to other resiliency centers to try and get a little bit more information from them on their memorial process. We did ask for design costs. That was very difficult to get. We looked at, they surveyed other centers to find out whether they've done fundraising for their memorials, which the majority of memorials have done a significant capital campaign for fundraising, whether they engaged a professional fundraiser, or whether they used an outside consultant for that fundraising. So these were the centers where the National Mass Violence Center was able to get a little bit more detailed information from, as a lot of that information is just challenging to track down. So again, I don't know if you want to pause here for a discussion about before we look at fundraising, but I can just finish up that again, we wanted to touch on the working group discussion on fundraising took place back in May 2024. At the time, that was shared with the City Council, as well as updates from the working group meetings have been shared after every working group meeting. But the consensus at the time was to make fundraising opportunities available for those that wanted to contribute, but to not conduct an aggressive capital fundraising campaign. But we can certainly revisit that at the discretion of the City Council. So again, what we're looking for as far as requests for feedback and direction from the council is establishment of a preliminary budget for consideration, and whether we want to continue with our current philosophy on fundraising or change direction as we move forward.
Thanks so much, Emily. And it's hard to have this conversation and not think of our friends in Providence, Rhode Island. So our hearts are obviously with them and with Mayor Smiley. And our deep appreciation, of course, to John and Mindy Gray for their contribution of $1 million, literally days after the shooting occurred. So thank you for raising the issue of dollars and what the present value is. And obviously, you know, you look at this chart and it's all over the place, and some of these numbers are 13 years old. And I think I've shared with this group that I've spent significant time looking at places of remembrance, talking to these mayors, talking to these communities, and getting a sense of what this process is like. And as unique and different as each of these communities are, it's horrible, and it's also across the spectrum in terms of what the outcome is, in terms of what the process is. The mayor of Orlando is a particular friend. That's been going on for over 10 years. The price went through the roof, they had to reconfigure. I think kudos to this working group, thank you for being part of that. Thank you, Gita, Jasmine, Emily for being the leader of all of this. You know, it's good that we've had our mission and we've stuck to our mission of coming to a place of respite and reflection and solace. Working with Dew Tank, I thought was super important and informative in terms of coming up with a primary and a secondary location. But I think we all can agree we need to get this done. It's not helping anybody for it to linger and to continue to be something that needs to be talked about in terms of this process, but we need to provide this place for people to have their solace, to have their opportunity to remember and to reflect. So a couple of thoughts that I just want to share with you. I personally would like to see this done by July 4th, 2027. That'll be the 5 years. And I think that's doable. I don't know, Gita, if you agree with that. My sense is nobody's looking to build the Taj Mahal, so we don't need a budget that is for the Taj Mahal. But we want to do it well. We want to do it thoughtfully. We want to do it in a way that's reflective of this community and this experience. And I'll be honest, when I sat through the conversation about fundraising, and you all know I am fiscally responsible, my hair was standing on end, hearing about approaches to how do we fundraise from the very people who are still working through this kind of trauma. We're very responsible stewards of tax dollars, and my feeling is we have a reserve. We can set a cap that's reasonable, and I keep looking at Yumi because I know this is your area, building, designing, and so forth. I think we can come up with a reasonable cap. I think we can get the funds out of those reserves. It's a one-time use. That's an appropriate use of reserves, and move forward in terms of providing this for our community. So I'm not wanting to take over the entire conversation, but I did want to kind of share those thoughts with everybody, having been immersed in this from the beginning. Any other thoughts? Councilmember Center.
What did we explore from a grant perspective, with respect to federal, state, local? I did see a couple on there that seemed to source at least some portion of the cost from other government municipalities. Is that?
So, Keith and I are like, we're still waiting to get a penny back for the expenses that are part of what happened to this community. We have not gotten any of our expenses recouped from that horror.
We have $500,000 anticipated revenue in this year's fiscal year budget that we're likely not going to realize because we've only got 2 weeks left in the year.
And they haven't sent it.
And they haven't sent anything.
And that's through unbelievably careful cost accounting to let them know all the costs. And we were told by the Department of Justice, you know, this is how you do it, and this is, and you've met Gita, she gets stuff done. And so for us to receive zero related to the event,
sure.
I would love, and I understand, grants can come from other places. We will, of course, as we have for so many other capital projects, pursue grants. I'm not holding my breath.
We'll pursue everything possible.
As we always do.
Yeah. But it would help from this group to at least have a budget number because, and for those of us who were in the interviews with the design consultants, what they said is, you know, that budget number really sets the framework for which they can work from, right? So it just gives an idea of what are they designing to, and then certainly we will keep the council apprised, we're gonna keep the public apprised, and if we come up with a plan that's gonna require an increased budget, we'll certainly come back to this group and look for that, but we just need kind of an idea of what kind of budget are we talking about.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
So, first of all, this grid, which you had also put up there, was very informative in the sense that there is no norm.
Right.
That grid. I try to look for similarities based on the size of the community, based on the size of the disaster, just by the number of people affected, the amount of time. There's no telling how different communities arrived at what they arrived at. What I want to say, first of all, as we try to arrive at a figure, is this should not be taken as a comment on how anybody in this government, either staff or elected officials, feel about what happened or the people who were affected. This is just an economic decision that has to be made. I think we're looking to develop a place of remembrance where people can do that, where they can remember at will when they need a place to go to think about what happened and for introspection, and also to some degree to mark the event. I think the use of our reserve is appropriate. That's within the intended purpose of that reserve. I'm far more comfortable looking to that than trying to fundraise. And frankly, the Department of Justice today is not what the Department of Justice was when this occurred. And the federal government is not a source that I am particularly comfortable looking to for support in any of this. With that in mind, sort of an intermediate range to me that I would think in terms of construction costs ought to get us to where we want is something in the $2 million range. That may be a little low, it may be higher than people are thinking, but I think that's a good starting point to talk about.
Excuse me, Tony, is that construction or that construction design?
Construction.
Just construction.
Okay, so the
Right,
355 is separate.
In addition to the costs of design and community outreach, right?
Design and community outreach, we're looking at close to $1 million in that.
Right. So the
Already
total
spent?
That would be spent for design.
for
The range
design,
was-
for community engagement, and, I'm sorry, Emily.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it, but yes, for design and community engagement, and then to take us to the point of building.
So potentially a total of $3 million, which is sort of where I landed as well, just in looking through these and talking to other mayors and hearing
Yeah.
sort of where their communities netted out. We'll go around the table. Let's start with Councilmember Ross.
Well, I haven't designed and built a, memorial, so, I'm not an expert. You're giving me too much credit there,
But as an architect.
But, yeah, the range for the phase 1 and phase 2 before construction is, it seemed like it was $1 million to $1.5 million.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
The range, the phase 2
1.2.
estimate was 700,000 to 1.25 million,
But that didn't include the
phase 1.
phase 1, so
Correct.
the whole of those two phases is $1 million to $1.5 million.
Right,
correct.
plus
Okay.
construction.
Plus construction.
Right.
And I did feel, but I guess I can't really control that the two phases seemed pretty expensive to me, more expensive than it ought to be, but I'm not on the committee that, the rest of us are not on any committees that have overseen that, or, so that would be my only comment there, but as far as, construction, I think, what you're talking about seems, a reasonable amount. I just, 2 million, that's, I guess, my only comment, that the phases.
That the
seem-
first part seems
Phases
high.
seem high to me.
Okay.
And then I, really just be very concerned to hew closely to whatever, number that we say is our do not to exceed number. I guess I wouldn't want to have cost overruns, and I guess
Nobody
that's what-
does.
Nobody does,
Yeah.
but, anyway, so that's, I'm more or less with you where, what you've described with the caveats of, I'm concerned about the front end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sander?
Yeah, I think, we're obviously trying to make a decision a little bit with incomplete information, and trying to do the best we can given the circumstances of what we know and what we're all trying to accomplish. I think Mayor, you Councilmember Berg kind of laid this out pretty well, and I'm supportive with the kind of overarching comment that you made and us preliminarily approving at that number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tapia actually, I think, wants to be called on.
Yes, hi. I just want to add my voice to it. I am in agreement that we should not pursue fundraising, and I would agree with what has been said, that the use of our reserves is an appropriate use of the reserves, and I think it should come from the city of Highland Park and as a good steward of the taxpayer dollars here, and without leaning into the community any further. On the cost, it was fascinating to see the variety. It was all over the place, hard to find any possible pattern. I think directionally, I would be more of the persuasion to keep it toward the lower end, and I'm not coming up with an actual number. But in other words, I think attitudinally, not necessarily thinking that we need to do something grandiose or something really a huge statement. My perception in our community is that yes, we want to honor, we need to respect, we need a place to go, but sort of the tendency tends to be sort of becoming more quiet and reflective and understated, if you will, but yet memorable and meaningful. So
Yep.
I would want that to be a guide, if others agree, of course, as we think about how much to spend on this, so that it meets what it needs without going overboard.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Councilmember Littler?
So, a lot more agreement on the sense that I don't think we should be engaging in fundraising for this. It really puts a bad taste in my mouth. And I will say, I wouldn't discourage if someone wanted to make a lovely gift, like John Gray did.
Right.
I would say, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
as a community.
Absolutely. Right.
But, unless that happens without solicitation or without effort, I think that it's a wonderful use of our reserves. I think that's exactly what this is for. And so I'm very comfortable with that. So from that perspective, it's great. I am very happy that some of the questions with SWA as far as insurance and whatnot were worked through, and that's great, or certain caveats that are in the agreement. So I'm very comfortable with that. I also think it's somewhat expensive. I have much less experience than you do. But even with that, they have said, here's a budget for design, and here's a potential budget for construction. We have beautiful infrastructure. One of the things I love about the fact that the Rose Garden was chosen for the main area is it's a garden, and it's beautiful. And I have no creativity, so I don't know what they could put in there that would cost $1 million, but I can tell you that whatever we give them as a budget number, they will rise to the spec.
I agree.
And that really bothers me. And I don't mean to be cheap in valuing it, but it makes me feel like if they're giving us a range of $750,000 to $1.25 million for construction, I'd really like to stay at $1 million for construction. The 355, that's what it is, and the 10%. But I have to tell you, in reading through this about the community outreach, I love what's been done. And I think we wanted to let the community say what they needed to say to feel good. But going back for all of these groups and the duration that it appears that it's going to take, I think that people are in a different place. Not everyone, and I will never judge someone else's feelings or how they want to react to it. But I think we need to really move on this. And that date of July 4th, 27, to me is the furthest out we could be. I would really like to see it done. And we talked when we had a committee of the whole, and a wonderful update from you all about even maybe, toward the end of this year, and 26, not 27. And I don't mean to push, and I'm not saying we should do something shoddily, but again, I think if the infrastructure's there and we've done the outreach, I hate to see us, giving them a budget that they'll grow. That's the wrong reason to do it.
I think it's cap, and I think with the interaction of the working group, we can also direct them and say, we don't need to go trot out and get another 900 responses to the same questions kind of a thing.
Right.
We want to also be sensitive to if somebody, I can't tell you how many comments and emails I've gotten, there must be fire, there must be water, and I'm like, that's something that we'll let the designers know. But to your point, I do think a lot of people are like, please don't keep asking me this question.
Yeah.
So I think that is one of the reasons why we picked SWA, was they're familiar with this kind of design. They've been working with other communities who've gone through a mass violence event. And I think they understand when it's time to stop and when it's time to ask. So, can I hear from Councilmember Bruckman?
Of course,
And then-
yeah.
Just very quick, I'm in agreement with where everyone was at in terms of the amount and as well as using the reserve funds. And also, as was just mentioned, I was going to say the same thing. To me, the most important part is getting this, close to done within the next 2 years. So that would be my priority as well.
Great.
So,
Thank you. Did you have any more you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to, not to put too fine a point on it. The reason I arrived at this figure, as I look at the costs of some of these other towns and municipalities, there are some that are enormously expensive, $29 million, $30 million.
Some of them have museums attached.
Some
so
have
that's what that's
museums
all about.
attached, and then some are profoundly inexpensive. There's one that's $200,000.
Right.
There's sort of a median area that's between about $1.5 and $2.25 million. So two seem sort of to get us, in my mind, in terms of construction costs, to something that will serve the purpose and that will be permanent. One of the things I think is important is that we spend enough money that whatever we put there is going to last a long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Please note as well, none of these have two locations.
Right.
Right.
But our second location
It's going to be subtle.
Very subtle.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I did want to comment that, I mean, if we wind up that it's, $3.5 million that we're spending, but stating the obvious, if we spend it well, or hopefully it's less than that, then people will be, saying that was good use of
Right.
the money, and if we spend it poorly, the opposite. And my goal would be that whatever that they design enhances the usability of the two locations. That it's not something just to look at, but it's enhanced how people use those two spaces. And that would be, a win for me. But yeah, I am concerned about cost, and at the same time, getting something, really well designed.
Right, right. So we will, as we have, continue to keep you certainly apprised as we move forward. Emily, has this given you the answers? I know, Gita, you wanted to add something.
Can I ask what those numbers are in terms of all-in or max budget or?
Well, I just wanted to provide 2 points of clarification. So the first is, so based on the feedback tonight, we're going to have the proposed agreement with SWA on the next agenda, which is January 12th for formal consideration. Once we are in agreement with them, we will have a kickoff meeting, and then we'll establish a timeline. So they're going to talk about what it takes them to do the design services, their significant public engagement. So we'll identify the steps that will be undertaken and an associate timeline and include that in the staff report. So that's one. And certainly, we want to get this done as expeditiously as possible, but certainly very thoughtful. And the public engagement and the public communication was such a critical piece to everybody. And so that's certainly going to be reflected in that timeline. The second thing is certainly, as the council knows, we have a balanced budget. We have a 10-year budget that is also likewise balanced. And so part of that balanced budget includes drawdowns every year to get us to our minimum fund balance. And so when we say the funds will be taken out of reserve, I just want you to know that's not exactly that we're going to take this project and use these reserves. So we are going to continue to balance the budget. So that may mean that some capital projects will have to be shifted to different years. But the feedback that we're hearing from you is move forward with a $2 million construction budget. And so we'll reflect that accordingly as we plan out the schedule. Okay, I just don't want you to think it's like exactly we're gonna take it out of reserves, because already we're using,
They're all appropriated,
Drawdown.
but that
Yeah.
being said, we've also shifted certain projects depending on the schedule for a variety of reasons. And so a parking lot or whatever may end up being done a year later, but that will be,
Correct.
those
Right.
funds will be used then for this or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
So, and I'd ask that they're going to be submitting their, bills to you on a monthly basis, that there's good oversight, that we're able to ask, okay, you spent this many hours on this,
absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And I think it's important for everyone to know, the working group meetings are open. You may not be able to talk because of the Open Meetings Act, but you are certainly welcome to come and sit and listen in on those conversations. And again, we'll be sure to keep you apprised of everything as we move forward.
For some reason, I thought that there might be, a subcommittee of when it came to design that one could serve on.
I want everybody around this table to be part of that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know that we want to.
I'm good with that, if we have that opportunity, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks so much, appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Okay, I guess we're moving this meeting into the next room for crowd purposes, so we'll pack up and move next door, so I need a 5-minute recess. Is there a motion?
Motion for.
You don't need a, you can declare it.
I am declaring a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
That was fast.
Okay, we are reconvening the Committee of the Whole for the City Council of Highland Park. The date is still December 15th, 2025. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Center?
Present.
Councilmember Brookman?
Here.
Councilmember Ross? Here. Councilmember Tapia?
Present.
Councilmember Littlewer?
Here.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Here.
Mayor Roding?
Here, we have a quorum, and Councilmember Tapia is joining us electronically, and we've already established that he is who he says he is, and we've approved his participation electronically. We are going to move on to item C, discussion of proposed new land use, Champions Point. Joel, I'm sorry, Director Fontaine, if you could give us a presentation, be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
So this is a discussion of a proposed new land use, referred to as Champions Point at this point. The recommendation from staff is that we request policy feedback regarding a proposal for a new type of land use. Champions Point LLC is the owner of the property at 2700 Point Lane, and they propose a new conditional land use consisting of the use of a single-family home as a tourist destination that offers public tours of the property and its on-site amenities. Proposed land use is not allowed and therefore would require a zoning text amendment to be formally considered. If included as a conditional use, any such use would require a special use permit, which consists of a public hearing at which detailed consideration of the use at a particular location, including but not limited to access, use, hours of operation limitations, and impact mitigation to determine whether the specific proposal at the particular location meets the standards for approval. So that's what a conditional use would require should a new use be introduced in the use table for the city zoning code. The zoning text amendment is its own consideration that requires a public hearing as well to introduce that use. Here's a map of the area. As you can see, that the subject property 2700 is identified here, as is Heller Nature Center to the north. So policy questions and next steps. As a policy question, it's put to the council whether the proposed use should be formally considered through a zoning code text amendment to allow as a new use in section 150-490. As we mentioned, the proposal is to allow it as a conditional use. Alternatives for tonight. The council can place this matter on city council agenda for further policy consideration and possible referral to the Plan and Design Commission for formal consideration at an upcoming meeting. Or the council could take no action, which effectively ends the discussion or further consideration on the matter. Staff's requests council's feedback regarding the proposal, and here this evening is Mr. John Cooper, the owner of the property. He has a presentation that he's provided, and he's requested that he be allowed to present.
Mayor, may I just, and that was excellent, and I just want to make sure that it's clear why we're here and why this is different than other applications you've received. Because as you know, in Highland Park, property owners and developers have the absolute right to request to go through a full process for all sorts of relief. In fact, on tonight's agenda, you'll see planned development proposals that have been requested by developers. Those don't come to you initially. Those go all the way through the process. This is different because this is a text amendment. And in Highland Park, we don't allow property owners or developers to even ask to amend the code. That request and that initiation of the process has to start with the city council. And so that's why we're here tonight. If you do decide to let the process begin, then there will be ample opportunity for public hearing through the Plan Commission, through our whole full-blown process with cross-examination and everything else that we allow at public hearings.
Right. So at this point, it's just a matter of, do we even want to proceed with any conversation concerning?
Do you want to initiate it or
Exactly.
not?
Okay, thanks.
And even if you do decide to initiate it, that has absolutely no bearing on what your ultimate decision could be. You
Right.
could initiate it and then ultimately vote against it.
Right, there's a public process.
There's a full public process that will inform you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Cooper, I don't know, oh, hello. If you'd like to share your presentation, if you could come forward.
Actually, just gonna leave it on this page, so don't need to do much here. Thank you. Mayor Rotering, council members, thank you for letting me speak today. First of all, happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas to everybody. 1 year ago, I purchased an iconic estate in Highland Park. During this past year, I've had the opportunity to see the immense joy that visiting the property brings to friends and family. I've also seen how the property can be used to raise money for local nonprofit organizations and how children can be positively affected by visiting the property and playing on the basketball court. I'm speaking with you today to share a dream of how this property can be used to positively impact our community and inspire our children. Champions Point has the potential to become a world-class museum, uniting people from all ages and backgrounds under a common purpose, to explore what it means to be great in life. Champions Point will work in partnership with a new nonprofit, Champions Legacy, to turn this greatness-themed experience into a Champions curriculum. We will then offer this curriculum free of charge to local schools, as well as partner with local organizations centered around enriching the lives of youth. The property will be made available for free for the benefit of Highland Park youth and the Park District several days each month. For the better part of a year, I've been exploring how to make this dream a possibility with minimal impact to neighbors and in nature. My proposal involves utilizing off-site parking within 5 to 10 minutes from the Heller Nature Center, with one shuttle bus running every 15 minutes. Patrons would walk on existing trails, one of which would be extended 120 feet to connect to Champions Point. Other measures will be taken to reduce vehicle traffic on Point Lane, create privacy buffers for neighbors, and limit evening activities to 6 events per year aimed at raising funds for nonprofits. It's difficult to say how much demand we would have, but we're hopeful to have on average 300 people daily visit our museum. We anticipate summer attendance will be higher and winter attendance may be lower. Ultimately, architects will determine the maximum occupancy of the museum, and we will ensure a flow that provides for a world-class experience. No changes or expansions for the structure are necessary, except for relating to ADA compliance, potentially a freestanding structure near the entrance, and the creation of public bathrooms. To ensure people with disabilities have access to enjoy this experience, an ADA accessible vehicle will be provided to bring people with special needs directly through the gate onto the property. Similarly, our employees would require access to the property via 2 shuttles daily. A once weekly supply delivery would also be necessary. This project carries many benefits for the community, its schools, and the Park District. Direct benefits to the city of Highland Park and its schools include creation and use of Champions curriculum with local youth, youth access to team building and mentorship on site 1 day each month, increased patronage of local businesses contributing to a bustling Highland Park, and tax revenue generated by increased property taxes and additional local business. Direct benefits to the Park District include once a month use of the property for Park District programming, a dedicated revenue stream from a portion of ticket sales, shared vision of helping people enjoy healthy leisure pursuits, and all marginal maintenance and labor costs are going to be absorbed by Champions Point. With your support, we will create a world-class museum which will inspire young people to realize their potential and help transform Highland Park into a vibrant epicenter of growth. Thank you.
Thank you. I know my council colleagues have several questions for you, so thank you for bringing this, and thank you for bringing this vision. When you first bought it, though, you were looking at having this be a timeshare and essentially a for-profit commercial enterprise, right? Am I right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and so just in looking at sort of what you've laid out here, and correct me if I'm wrong, 24 days commercial would be community benefit, 24 days out of the year. Is that in addition to the once a month that the Park District would use, or is that including the once a month that the Park District would use?
Yeah, so I'm looking at a total of 48 days per year that would be for community benefit. How I would see the breakdown would be 1 day a month for the Park District, 1 day a month for, we'll say, the school system of Highland Park, and then 2 days a month for the greater Chicagoland area to enrich the lives of youth.
So that's 13% if you're open every day of the year. So the other 87% is basically a commercial enterprise.
That's correct.
Okay, so I kind of have a problem with that to some extent, because when your neighbors bought their homes, this was a residential area, continues to be zoned residentially. And to come with a presentation about community benefit when it's basically 13%, the other 87%, you're not really talking about. So do you want to talk to us more about that other 87% of the time and what your proposed use is? And from my reading of some of what we got, it sounded like tens of thousands of people are anticipated to be coming to and fro during that 87% of the time.
Yeah, that's accurate. So the theme of the tour is going to be greatness. And our goal is to kind of teach people what it means to be great in life. I think being a great person is someone that gives to other people. It requires a lot of times mentorship, discipline, perseverance, and the whole museum is going to be dedicated to teaching people about these pillars of greatness. So although it is a commercial enterprise, I believe there will be great benefit to the community and to anybody that gets to experience the museum. I also plan on bringing in artwork or having artwork commissioned with the theme of greatness from great artists from around the world. So I think it can be enriching from an artistic standpoint also.
Okay, but essentially this is a for-profit tourist destination.
It is, yes, and that profit is what's going to allow me to be able to create the Champions curriculum that then will go out into the community for benefit of the community. So that will cost money, and I plan to be probably the primary donor to Champions legacy.
Is it accurate to say, though, that prior to the charitable approach that you are presenting now, you offered your neighbors to share in the profits?
I did. I believe that everybody can win together when you have something that can be great for the community. And so at one point I did approach my neighbors and offer them to share in the success of the venture. That offer is still there.
Okay, and my understanding is you're kind of saying this is Michael Jordan's Graceland, basically, that you're looking to.
At one point that's what I thought.
Okay.
And as I got deeper into exploring what it could really do for humanity, I think like Mike, he's a great person and obviously was a major part of this community.
Right.
But I think it can be so much larger than that. I think what the house itself is architecturally great. But I think I've just really seen it inspire people when they come into the house. And I think we can use it as a source of inspiration to bring people together at a time where there seems to be a lot of divisiveness in society.
How many parties have you had since you bought it?
I've probably had about 12 parties since I bought the house.
Okay. How have those worked out? And again, I know about one.
Yeah.
But how have they worked out in terms of getting people there, the noise?
Yeah. I think they've worked out pretty well. The house probably has about 40 on-site parking spots. There's a lot of paved area there. I've done 2 larger parties that required shuttle buses to come in. One was a broker's open for the point of trying to find somebody to lease the space while I'm working on the larger plan.
Okay.
Just because it is costly. The other was a charity fundraiser for a group called CREW, which used to be called Campus Crusade for Christ. And they work with athletes in action. And so I did a fundraiser for that organization. On those 2 occasions, we had shuttle buses come in and out of the property. I always make it clear there's absolutely no parking on the street there. And so the church across the street offered parking for one of the events, and then my broker's company at Properties offered parking for the other event. Other parties I've done is around, usually 40 or 50 people. These are friends and family. Watch parties. I had the Husker men's basketball team over. I'm from Nebraska originally. Happy to offer it to Northwestern as well. But that was just personally fulfilling. I used to go to basketball games with my dad, and it was meaningful to be able to have the team over.
Okay. Curious to know what my other council members are wanting to know. Councilmember Bruckman?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, first off, for your time and resources and your thoughtful presentation. I really appreciate that. So my thoughts first, so this is not just about this one property. It raises questions about zoning precedents in my mind, impacts neighbors, the nearby residents, and environmental effects on the Heller Nature Center, fiscal implications to the city and county, and whether it's responsible to spend staff and commission time if the proposal is unlikely to move forward. With that said, I have a few questions. So I know because access relies heavily on the Heller Nature Center, do you have written confirmation from the Park District that they have support for the shuttle drop-off, trail use, and path extensions yet?
So we've had multiple meetings. They're ready to take the next steps forward of exploring it. I don't want to put words in their mouth. I'm not sure if any of them are here today, but there's a good path there. They see the benefits and the crossover that this can do toward their mission.
Okay, and then the follow-up to that. So if the Park District ultimately declines participation, do you have an alternate access path or plan in terms of traffic or impacts to residential streets?
Sure. I mean, the original plan when I met with my neighbors about 6 months ago was bringing people directly onto the property with shuttle buses. Obviously, that's an easier path because the road's already there. I also understand that's a greater burden on my neighbors and neighborhood to have extra vehicles traveling in and out, even if it's only 4 vehicles an hour. That was part of why I thought maybe we could share in the success together, because I understand that it's, there are considerations that they would be putting aside to provide their support for this project. So that's one other mean, but it seemed not likely to go through that way. And the feedback that I received was, the best chance of having a more of a public use for the property would be to find alternative access to the property, which then I've worked over the last 6 months to try to take that feedback and use it.
Okay, thank you. And then as just a background, I grew up actually on Maver Lane, so I was right there, so I'm very familiar with the neighborhood and traffic. So another question I had, so you had mentioned in your presentation, you'd referenced phase growth. What specifically growth are you referring to with that presentation? Attendance, conferences, length?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure where it might be able to go in the future. Obviously, if this moves forward, there'll be a very specific set of rules that I'll agree to follow. I've never done something exactly like this before. And so, I've got an idea of what demand will be. It could be more, it could be less than that. So, I just want to allow it to move forward in a way that has minimal impact to neighbors and to nature.
Okay, great. So what level of environmental analysis have you done in terms of Heller Nature Center with the habitat, lighting, erosion, wildlife? Have you done any research on that yet?
So since we're pretty early in this, I don't have a lot of research yet. I would like the opportunity to be able to present that information in future meetings as I commission it. I want to make sure that since that is a significant time and financial investment to create the reports, that there's some chance for it to move forward. But I will be ordering a traffic study, an economic impact study, and an environmental study to support, the claims.
Okay, Thank you. Those are all my questions for right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you offer to share some of the revenue with the Park District if they move forward with you? What
I have.
percentage would you be sharing with them?
5% is what we've discussed. Nothing is sort of finalized yet, but
And would that be 5% of gross, or would that be 5% of the community days?
it'd be 5% of the gross ticket sales.
Okay, thanks. Councilmember Bloomberg?
I'll start by asking a couple of background questions. You've talked about doing a lot of different kinds of programs. What is your background and experience operating a museum?
I don't have
Because
any background.
Essentially, you're talking about turning this into a museum.
Correct, yeah. I would be relying on a team of other people that have a lot of experience with running museums to help me.
Have you picked those people out? Are you aware of any of those companies?
Yeah, I have them picked out, and when the time is right or when we're able to go forward with it, if we are fortunate enough to get approval, they're ready to hit the ground running. They're excited about the project. In the next meeting, I can probably give the names of the companies and the names of individuals that will be helping.
Okay. You've also talked about using this as providing an educational function to younger people. Do you have a background in teaching and education?
I do not, but a gentleman that's helping me by the name of Daryl Roberts has put together two very powerful programs. One of them was around 2007, around women's self-esteem. He's actually an award-winning documentarian, and he created a documentary called America the Beautiful. And then he went around to colleges for about 3 years and talked about the documentary and how the American culture and advertising can hurt women's self-image. And then he followed that up some years later, working on a campaign with Abercrombie and Finch on anti-bullying, which he got it into 20,000 high schools across the United States, and it actually had a noticeable effect on lowering bullying, like measurable effect. And so Daryl is going to be the mastermind of putting together the curriculum.
And to some degree, you've also talked about an inspirational program.
Yeah.
I don't quite have an idea of exactly what you're talking about. If you could sort of fill in the details of what that entails and what your experience is with that as well.
Mm-hmm. I've had the opportunity to see groups of children come into the house. In fact, I've got a supporter here that runs Shy Cook Officers in Motion. And so it's a charity that connects children with police officers and lets them know that officers are here to help us. And she was able to bring up 30 children from a more impoverished part of Chicago for an experience to play on the basketball court and see the house. And they interviewed the kids. I didn't know it, but she brought some news media with her, and they were interviewing the kids, and one of them said, just being here makes me want to try harder so that I can have the opportunity to have this type of, experience or in my life. And so I was really moved by that interview, and I believe that's what it could do for thousands of kids, the opportunity to see what hard work and perseverance can get them.
Okay. You've talked a little bit about the number of people you hope to attract to these different programs and your hopeful interdependence with the space at Heller to be able to park all these people and to transport them to the property. But you're going to have a large number of people working there. Where are those people going to be housed, and how are they going to get to the property?
Yeah, I think the employees would need to take a shuttle bus directly onto the property. As a patron, I think it's reasonable to ask somebody to walk about a quarter of a mile for a one-time experience. But as employees that are coming and going daily, especially in the dead of winter, to ask them to walk a quarter of a mile each way might be a rough ask to find employees. So I would ask for 2 shifts of vehicles to be able to come in and out at the end of their shifts. Similarly with ADA needs, I realize that's a difficult ask to have somebody in a wheelchair or somebody that's elderly walk or travel such a great distance. So there would be some accommodations for ADA accessibility.
I appreciate your answering my questions. They are somewhat secondary. I share some of the same concerns that Councilmember Bruckman expressed, that if we change the zoning code, we're essentially opening this up, even though it's a conditional use, to other applications of people who may be more focused or less focused than you in different areas of town. And so I have some concerns about that. I have a lot of concerns, even though the Park District may ultimately be amenable to it. I still have to say I'm troubled with the kind of impact the tens of thousands of people tramping in and out of the Heller Nature Center would have on that asset of Highland Park. I am concerned about that, and I really, that has more to do with your particular proposal than the issue of whether we're going to allow us to consider a zoning code change, but I'm still concerned about that. So that's what's on my mind.
Thank you. I have actually some more questions. I have been in the house. How do you account for the ADA in that house? I mean, it's gazillions of levels and.
Yeah. I'm assuming I'm going to need to make it ADA compliant. And so I would be adding ramps, adding chair lifts to get up to the second floor and into the basement, having ADA accessible bathrooms. So I would be making the necessary changes to facilitate the museum use.
And given what I've heard sounds like a true dedication to inspiring kids, why wouldn't more of the time be spent on these charitable purposes? Like 13% is tiny. Why wouldn't more than half of the time, half of the entrance? Like if you think about museums, most museums are not for profit. This is certainly not a not-for-profit museum, given the current proposal that you're making. So why would, if this is truly what you're aiming for, why wouldn't you make it more of a charitable enterprise?
Yeah. So Champion's Legacy is going to be a full-time charitable enterprise with its own employees. And so part of the money, from the for-profit is going to be donated to the nonprofit to have outreach above and beyond what the house can do. The house is just a house, and only so many people are going to be able to come into the house just logistically. But I've got a vision to be able to have the program go nationwide through I'm hoping to work with possibly the Boys and Girls Club, and have had some early conversations with them. So to create a curriculum and then to be able to educate other educators to get it out in front of 4 million children is a full-time commitment, and it'll be costly. And so somehow that money needs to come from somewhere, and I'm looking at the for-profit business as a driver of the nonprofit.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia, who's in the CLA, would like to ask some questions.
Yeah. The events you've had so far, which I think, if I heard right, is about 12, and those were shuttled in there because obviously the access to the back would not be ready yet. But I'd be interested in hearing from you and also from the neighbors whom I know are there, who will speak later, about what that experience was like in terms of impact. And I'm thinking about two things. One, there's the access, which you're trying to resolve by going through the back, basically through Helen Nature. But I'm interested in what the impact was once everybody was inside, and what because that is a huge property, as we all know, and I'm just trying to imagine the level of disturbance or not once people are inside the house and turn around. Is it secluded enough, or there's enough space around it that you can't feel it or notice it? Or do you notice it? Because to me, there's the access to the property issue, but there's also the number of people at the property while they're there. What does it feel like for the neighborhood?
Sure. Well, I think early on, I had some growing pains, never owning a house like this before. So just getting people in, trying to show them where to park so they weren't boxing each other in, I think the first time the basketball team came over, counter to my instructions, they let the team off and then didn't move their bus. I told them they needed to get the bus out of the neighborhood, and I don't think that happened, and I found out about that later, so I apologize for that. As I've owned the property longer and kind of worked through some of these challenges, I think it's been better. You know, we had a disagreement on how loud music could be played at one point, and so the police came out and we agreed on an appropriate volume level, and then I kept it at that level ever since. And although I did have a few large gatherings over the summer, I haven't really done much of the house in the last 4 or 5 months. So as we all know, in Chicago, there's a time that you can actually enjoy being outside, and then there's a time where just not a lot goes on. So to answer your other question about being in the house is 37,700 square feet. It can accommodate hundreds of people at one time, and you wouldn't even know the other people are there because there are so many different parts of the house. So it's also pretty well buffered from the neighbors. I mean, the intent when the property was built was privacy, so there's a large line of pine trees all the way around the property. There's a pretty good distance between the neighboring properties and the building itself because it sits on almost 7.4 acres. So I think many times when there are a lot of people there, nobody would know except for the fact, people come in and out of the gate.
And now they'd be coming on this path from Heller.
Correct, yeah. And one thing I think I could actually decrease the traffic on Point Lane because currently there's somewhere of, upwards of 50 people a day that every day come onto that property just to get a picture in front of the gate. And so with this proposal, I would be moving the 23 gate into the interior of the property. And even in an earlier proposal to my neighbors, I've offered to turn our neighborhood into a gated neighborhood to the extent that the city would allow it, and pay for personal security for the entire neighborhood at my expense. And so, if safety is really a concern, if vehicles traveling on that road that are not residents of that neighborhood is really a concern, I have a solution for that I'm happy to institute.
How many people per year do you anticipate? Like if it's working the way you envision it, how many people would you envision coming each year?
I mean, if I'm thinking an average of 300 people a day, and I'm open 300 days a year, that's 90,000. So let's call it 100,000 people.
On the path from Heller, basically.
On the path, yep.
So 300 people a day kind of marching past your neighbors' backyards, essentially.
I think the path goes several hundred feet away from my neighbors' properties, but yeah, that's accurate.
Okay, we did hear from somebody who said their pool's like right there, so I think they'd be watching 300 people march by their pool every day, but just wanted to establish what we're talking about. Councilmember Littleworth?
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Tapia has another question.
Yeah, just so I can finish my turn
Thank you,
here.
Councilmember.
How did you come up with an estimate of 300 a day? Like, on what basis are you basing that?
I guess it's hopeful. That's a great question. It could be more than that. It could be less. I don't have a great answer there.
Okay.
Okay, and one more question, Mayor, if you will.
Yep.
If I may. I do want to come back to Councilmember Bruckman's question about the Highland Park District. I know you can't speak to them, but I would like to know a little bit more about the nature of the conversations. What is it that they have seem to indicate that they're open to this, in that we are looking at the Hell Nature Center. They have their own, have to welcome their own visitors just to the Hell Nature Center. What kind of red flags or yellow flags or concerns or issues to still be resolved are you aware of as they continue their deliberation?
So as I've talked to them, there's a lot of crossover in what their mission is and what my mission is. They want people to have a healthy pursuit of nature and leisure. This property contains tennis court, basketball court, weight room, putting green. So these are all things that could be used for team building for, let's say, the camps that they run over the summer. Or as we bring in students from Highland Park schools, we can do team building exercises and leadership talks from mentors there. So I think part of what they like in the proposal is that there's an alignment on what we're trying to accomplish. Also with Heller Nature Center, they want to get people out enjoying nature. I was there this summer on a beautiful day right after church, and there were 2 other cars there, on a nice summer day. So here we have 97 acres, and I'm there with 6 other people on a day where I think a lot of people should be out there enjoying nature. And so I think one thing that they mentioned that they like is this is a great way to get people out exercising and seeing the beauty of nature and what Highland Park has to offer. Financially, if you would take 5% of the ticket revenue, that could be $500,000 or more annually for them. So that's money that they would be able to put wherever they want to. I think we talked about part of it staying with the Heller Nature Center specifically to augment that property. And then if we needed extra employees to, I guess, let's say somebody threw some litter, I would want that picked up, right? So I would have my employee that I'm paying for walk the trail and keep the trail maintained. Would probably enhance I anticipate there'd be one kind of main trail that's the one that comes closest to the property, so that trail would be enhanced at my expense. I'd be helping with snow removal and bathroom maintenance, and then of course I'd have my own bathrooms too. So I think there's definitely a lot of advantages to working together with the Park District, and they see those advantages, and we are looking at taking the next steps. We don't have any official agreement signed, and obviously it's got to work lockstep with the city here, but we've had good discussions so far.
How many parking spaces are at Heller?
I think Heller has maybe 50 spots. It's not a huge parking, which is why my proposal would have people park off-site and then shuttle to the Heller Nature Center, because I want to make sure that those parking spots need to stay open to people that are coming out there to enjoy the Nature Center.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Councilmember.
All right, so a couple questions. I'm going to assume for a few minutes that the Park District is looking at the sustainability, the leisure, and the protection of Heller. Just for a minute, because at some point we'll overlap on that. But and if I'm going to look at it that way, from a council perspective, I'm most interested in the neighborhoods and in the neighbors who reside right there. So I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding how, in your proposal, it says something about 6 events in the evening per year. So are those 6 educational events? Are you limiting, I don't understand where the for-profit 87% takes the time away from the 13% of what I would believe would be daytime events, mostly for kids in the Park District and whatnot. So could you speak to a little bit the way you see a breakdown of the time and the usage at the house and in the neighborhood?
Sure. So one of the trade-offs with allowing the museum to exist is that the museum closes at the end of the day, whether it's 5 o'clock in the winter or 7 o'clock in the summer. That would be the close of the business. People would leave, and the neighbors would be left with a quiet neighborhood with nothing happening in the evening. Ideally, I would like permission to be able to do 6 events in the evening over the course of an entire year. And those would be exclusively to benefit 501c3s. I would like to be able to do some fundraisers for Champions Legacy, to be able to bring in money to create the curriculum and to distribute it potentially among thousands of different locations eventually. I'm open to it not being exclusively Champions Legacy, but I know there's other great charities here around Highland Park that could use additional exposure and additional funds. So, to the extent that I can use the property in the evening to benefit other groups, I'd love to do that. I'm also sensitive to my neighbors, and that part of the trade-off is they get guaranteed quiet evenings.
So that it's only those 6 evenings that you're looking at potentially.
Correct.
Okay, and then I want to understand a little bit more about the actual transportation through the neighborhood. So if you're saying that your employees are shuttled twice a day to get to work and to leave work, are they being shuttled through Heller, or are they being shuttled through the front gate? And then similarly, are the shuttles, for classrooms or individuals or the private sector who wants to come, because that is 87%, where do the shuttles go?
Right. So all shuttles for customers and students would go to the Heller Nature Center. The only shuttles that would come onto the property would be 2 shuttles for employees. I proposed 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the summertime hours. So 11-hour shifts, pretty long for people, so probably not going to have them work 11 hours. So I would anticipate some people arriving for their 8 o'clock shift and then a second shift coming in, say, 11 or noon. And then the first bus would then leave with people 8 hours after the first shift, and then you'd have 1 bus final. So that would be two buses coming in with employees and 2 buses going out. And then the only other bus that I'm anticipating would be for ADA accessibility, to make sure that they have the same opportunity to enjoy the experience as anybody else would have.
But again, do those buses go up the street? Because we talked about every 15 minutes.
Right.
Are those going up the street, or are they coming through the back through Heller?
So, 95% of the buses are going to be going on Ridge. Now, I don't know yet if they're coming from the north or from the south. That'll depend on where the off-site parking would be approved. But those are going to come directly into Heller. They're going to drop off the patrons.
And then they walk over.
And then they walk over, yeah.
Okay, so for-profit or not-for-profit, the vast majority of people, you're saying, would not be driving a car and would not be coming in on a bus that goes straight up the front?
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I'm real sensitive to vehicle traffic, especially. I know sometimes it gets a little bit hectic there on 22 as people are turning south onto Skokie Boulevard. So the idea is the parking will be 5 to 10 minutes away. People will park there, come do their experience, bus back, and then hopefully spend a little bit of time enjoying some of the other entertainment and businesses that Highland Park has to offer.
Yeah, the only other question I have, and I want to follow up because the mayor brought up some stuff about over the summer and parties and whatnot. And first of all, do you feel that at this point you're in a good place with noise restrictions, that the neighborhood is comfortable with you? And how will this impact noise even during the day?
Yeah, I feel like we're in a good place. There shouldn't be noise during the day because it's primarily an indoor activity. People are coming to do the exhibits that are inside the house. They'll walk, I guess, on the path. Once they get onto the property, they're going to need to walk to the house. But from then on, they'll be inside the house. So there really shouldn't be much noise with that.
And is that gated off, for lack of a better way? Can people just walk off the path and just wander elsewhere, or are you saying it would go straight from Heller to the property? I mean,
so the Heller has miles and miles of paths on it, but there would be one path specifically that is the closest that would come to my property. And on that path, we would extend the last roughly 120 feet to connect to the northwest corner of Champions Point. And so I would take out a portion of the fence there, probably have some sort of like a freestanding ticket booth, for lack of better words, or some place where somebody could be out of the rain if it's raining, and monitor the people coming onto the property. And then when they finish their experience, they would leave the same way and then walk on the existing path to get back to their shuttle bus.
Would that ticket booth be visible from your neighbors' homes?
I mean, in the winter, a lot of stuff is visible because the leaves are gone. In the summer, not so much. The ticket booth is not a must-have, so if that is some kind of a deal breaker, they could stand out there in a rain jacket in the rain. It's probably not necessary.
so the only reason I ask this, and then I'm done, is,
Sure.
we are a residential neighborhood with certain areas where we have commercial or retail things going on. But we do have one area where, the high school and Walters Field, the football field, is right next to a neighborhood. And it has, been something that we've had to regulate and monitor and work very hard with the school districts to make sure that the neighbors are comfortable. But many of the neighbors moved in after, so they knew there was a football field there, and it still has caused issues. But here, people moved in, never anticipating anything commercial. And that's why I'm asking about noise and intrusion into a beautiful residential neighborhood.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. I know that property was for sale for nearly 13 years. And so lots of people had the opportunity to purchase the property as a house. And it just wasn't selling as a house. It's not a practical house. I guess unless you're a billionaire, to live there is unrealistic. I spend time there with my family, but I'm not sleeping there. I also have a residence, wife and 4 kids over in Lincolnshire. And so it's a second house for us. But I believe what would have ultimately happened to the house is it probably would fall into disrepair, or we maybe would lose an iconic part of Highland Park if that were ever bulldozed and, chopped up and made other houses. I feel like Highland Park has this amazing asset of a person that lived here that was, influential or world-changing. And I think this should be an asset that the city should enjoy, the community should be able to enjoy, and people in general should be able to really see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ross?
Thank you for your, presentation, and obviously a lot of thought that you've put into this. As much as I appreciate that you've been struggling to make this financially viable for yourself, and as much as I want to be fair to a property owner in Highland Park, I want to say from this outset that I don't feel we have an obligation as a city to make this profitable for you. I mean, that's your, that's your job, I guess. Regarding the extension of the path, it is my understanding that lots of trees would have to come down for that path. I want to state that. I don't understand the museum concept at all. I understand that you, as the owner, don't have experience in this area creating a museum, but I don't even see a glimmer. For me, it's just hard to see the glimmer of an idea beyond experiencing greatness, because it's a very, very big house that, visitors can aspire to or want to be like Mike. And I was a big fan of his too, but still, I don't see how this is educational. I just don't see the formation of a museum. It's a really, really big undertaking to create one. Another part that I'm struggling with is, the public school day for students is jam-packed. It's hard enough to squeeze in basic curriculum, and I say this as a former 112 school board member for a K-8 school district. I'm having a tough time imagining bringing students once a month. I am concerned about the Heller Nature Center as well, the negative impact on it. But basically, I think the Park District needs to decide, whether they want, to work with you or not. And so I'll go back to the path that I assume you can confirm that. There were a lot of trees. That's what I heard. A lot of trees would have to come down to create the extension of the path that you were talking about.
Who did you hear that from?
I'm sorry?
Who did you hear that from?
Well, from the city manager. I sorry to put you in that, yeah.
So we're talking about probably like a 5-foot walking path, and we're concerned with heritage trees that have value. There's also trees that are kind of like weeds that choke out healthy trees. So what I believe we can do is remove the unhealthy trees and keep the heritage trees and wind the path around larger trees so that it's as least disruptive as possible. And then, of course, there's other things that we can do, like plant new trees. If there would have to be a tree removed, which I'm not sure. We haven't gotten to the point yet where we looked at exactly where the path would go or how it would connect. But I know that there's other mitigating things that we can do to have a net gain for the forest preserve.
Yeah, that may be the case. I think I have equally big concerns, again, that there's no actual concept for a museum. And as I said, the impact on the Heller Nature Center and the neighbors. And I guess I'll leave it to you to, I'm still interested in hearing the conversation around this.
Thank you. Councilmember Center?
Mr. Cooper, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. I know Councilmember Bloomberg, got into a little bit around your background and sort of the fact that you're planning to, and have already identified some operators and educators that could help carry out this vision. I'm just curious, what is your actual background?
Oh, yep. So I've been in real estate for the past 15 years. My partners and I own primarily self-storage facilities and RV parks throughout the Midwest.
Got it. Thank you. From a big picture perspective, I think your vision is really interesting, and I appreciate that. And, personally, I'm trying to just keep an open mind that considers that big picture and allows us as a council and a community to potentially co-develop a solution that works for all stakeholders. And certainly the potential impact to many of the residents in this room right now is of utmost concern to all of us, right? And to them, of course, most personally. And so what I've heard so far is a openness and a desire to try to reduce the potential impact to them as much as possible. And I think to the extent that this continues, we as a council, and I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody, but I think us as a council and the community at large would significantly demand creative solutions to continue to mitigate those concerns, in terms of foliage, security, et cetera, to ensure that the potential impact and risk to the neighboring properties is as reduced as possible. And so for me to try to get there is a very high bar. But all that said, again, the vision that you're creating here, creating this experience, the potential positive impact to kids, to help empower people, to engage the community, both here locally and directly outside of Highland Park, I think is super interesting. I'm just looking back at my notes to see if I have anything else to add. Yeah, I think those are my overarching comments. So I appreciate you being here, and thanks for answering all these questions.
Thank you.
Any further conversation from the council? Councilmember Bloomberg.
I think I'll just add along the lines of some of the comments you heard at this end. One of my concerns is that asking for a zoning amendment for this is a very site-specific ask. If we pass a zoning amendment, it means other people can ask to do this anywhere else, that it would be a conditional use. And that's the biggest difficulty I have. You've talked about a lot of interesting things that seem vague. And that doesn't make me very comfortable in terms of asking me to change, asking the council to consider changing Highland Park zoning for something that's very site-specific and completely inconsistent with everything that's around it. That's sort of where I am right now.
Sure.
Councilmember Bruckman.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just go back to, I know Michael Jordan used to speak back in the day about he moved to this neighborhood for the privacy and the quaint neighborhood that it gave him. And to me, this just doesn't seem like this is it at all. And I keep on going back to the neighbors, and they've unanimously have said that they do not want this in their neighborhood. So for me, that's why I respect that. And I'm also at the same place as a council member Blumberg as well. But I really appreciate you coming out and talking with us.
I want to echo that. And it's interesting because I've been to Graceland, so I understand walking through the house and seeing the stuff. And I've been to Michael Jordan's house and trying to like look at the comparison of the two. But obviously, one of the hugest differences is Graceland is basically, surrounded by a highway. He's got his airplane. He's, commercial district, Holiday Inn, all of that. You okay?
Yeah.
Neighbors are not going to be watching thousands of people go to Graceland from their pool in their backyard. So living near Ravinia, I understand traffic management and what the impact of a tourist destination can be on a neighborhood. I think we've done a great job with that, but I moved into my house knowing that that was there. I think several of the people in this audience moved to their house without any intention of living next door to Graceland North, basically. So I'm not comfortable, to your point, sort of opening that door so that in another neighborhood, somebody can go, well, by the way, we have this Frank Lloyd Wright house, and now we're going to create a museum around this house, or whatever the case may be. I just think, honestly, to my city manager, I kind of feel like we need to look at short-term rentals again. So I'm kind of going in the other direction towards how do we protect neighbors and neighborhoods. These are people's generally biggest assets. They've invested a lot. It's their emotional safe space. It's quiet enjoyment. I don't know how you get quiet enjoyment with 300 people marching past your backyard every single day. And more to the point, I just sort of feel like there's been this emphasis on charitable approaches, but it's not truly the majority of the use of this place. The majority of the use of this place is basically to make a profit, and that's wonderful. It's a capitalist economy, but I just sort of feel like it's not quite how it's being proposed. So any further comments from?
Yeah.
You want to go first?
No, you go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, no, all fair comments, Mayor. I appreciate that. And Councilmember Bloomberg, I guess, precedence is critically important. I get that. This is a very unique asset. I'll just say sort of on the other side of the coin there. We're dealing with, again, something that doesn't exist anywhere else around in our community, let alone across the country, right? So we do have the ability to say no in other situations.
That is
so
true.
Let's just put that out there. I'll just go back a little bit to sort of the tenor of my comments, which are high bar, but is there a way that we can work together as a community, including those that are most directly impacted, to try to get to yes, right? I think we a lot of times say, this seems hard, this is going to be impossible, there's no way we can accomplish this, versus trying to think creatively and working together. And maybe we'll never get there, it's possible, because this is a very tall order and a lot of moving parts. And I think Mr. Cooper's done a really nice job of trying to get ahead of some of those considerations and be thoughtful around that. There's a lot more to go. And so it might never work for a variety of reasons that we're all talking about. But my inclination would be, let's at least give it let's give it some oxygen to give it a chance.
So,
Councilmember Littleworth?
thank you. So I didn't realize we were going to go down the line and kind of give our opinions, but if that's the point we're at, no pun intended with Champions Point, I think we have a process, and it's an expensive process because you go before the Plan and Design Commission, you go through commissions, there's a lot to go through to get something changed, but that's because we're really thoughtful about it. And to Councilmember Center's point, I think this is just a treasure and it's a unique thing. And I would like to see it explored within the confines of protecting our community and our neighbors. But I'd also like to know if there's a way, and I do think that's a tall order, which is why I caution you that it's an expensive venture to even get to the point of yes. But I personally would really like to see us study it, because right now, frankly, and what do I know, but I think your 300 projections are way off. I mean, I look at who goes to Heller, because I go up there a lot of the time, and there are not 300 people a day going to the Heller Nature Center. And maybe the attraction of this place will be very different, but there's so much that I would like to learn to see if there's a way of doing it or not. And maybe there isn't, because the last thing I want to do is disrupt our neighborhood and our community. But I do think that it's a treasure that I'd like to see balanced. And
we have a process. And, you know, as Corporation Council pointed out, we could ask to go forward and have the PDC, for example, consider this, and we could still come back and tell you, no, it doesn't work. And that's why I say to you in a cautionary way, are you sure you want to do that? But frankly, as an elected official, I would rather see us go through the process to really see if it's just a total no, or if there's something that is really wonderful, whether it's only 13% charitable and educational. You know, there's nothing wrong with making money either, but it's just a question of how it fits in our community.
Councilmember Ross?
Yeah, and I've got just a ton of reservations about this, you know, project. There are so many reservations about how you would make this work, and how we can, you know, safeguard the interests of neighbors. I think to all of us, that's really important, that, you know, that neighbors are, you know, comfortable with what you're doing. And having said that, I'm not ready to just, whatever the final option was on the screen, of just not discussing this any further. I think it's worth discussing. I just see, I'm not optimistic about this, but I think in some kind of fairness, that a little more discussion about this would be worthwhile. And, you know, if I had to, honestly, if I had to vote right now, I'd say this is not a good idea, but I'm just saying I'm open to a little more discussion about this.
Thank you. Councilmember Tapia?
Yes, I do believe that, you know, we follow standards and precedent, but I also understand when there is an outlier situation because of the uniqueness of it. And the Michael Jordan property is definitely qualifies as a way outlier, a unique legacy in the city of Highland Park. And I am intrigued by the possibilities of really being able to do something with what has been a legendary thing, a place that is part of Highland Park's history. And I'm intrigued by the ideas that have been presented about, sure, it's a money-making business, but there's also a nonprofit element to it. There's revenue that could go to the park district. There is the attraction of visitors into the city of Highland Park, which could benefit the city in broader ways. And in even the messaging that the property owners wanting to achieve through the purpose of the museum. Now, whether it's viable or not, that's a business decision. I don't feel one for us to determine whether it's viable or not. I think our primary responsibility is, you know, the impact on the neighborhood, as also what could be beneficial for the city of Highland Park's continued attractiveness. So I worry very much about the impact on the neighbors. I think there's been a lot of effort to address many of the concerns, whether they have been, and some of them might be, you can say, yeah, they address this and that and the other, but there's still other open-ended issues that I think warrant more exploration. So I'm in the camp of intrigued, thinking that if something could be worked out, that could be a win-win all around. This could be a real breakthrough or, you know, standout, attraction of the city of Highland Park, like Ravinia Festival is. But, you know, we have to be mindful of the impact on the neighbors. And so I think further study is warranted to sort of see if those issues can be addressed or not.
So I know several neighbors have come out and want to share their thoughts. We generally don't do comments from the public during committee of the whole because it's an opportunity for the council to just talk about policy, but we certainly understand the desire to share your opinions, and we've read all of the emails that have been sent to us. So with that, we have 25 minutes that we can use towards public comment. It looks like you have your attorney standing next to you ready to say something, but do you want to let the public speak, or do you want to share what's on your mind?
I would like the public to speak, but I just wanted to, excuse me.
And if you could state your name for the record, that'd be great.
Of course. Carl Kimalucci from the Taft Law Firm on behalf of Champions Point. Thank you. Very briefly, I just wanted to, underscore something that all of you already know, which is that right now, all Champions Point is requesting is that the council allow an application for a text amendment to be filed, not to make a final decision about the project and its merits. And the reasons for that have been illustrated by the discussion that we've had tonight, which is that there's a lot of really important questions that the council has raised and that neighbors have raised about exactly how this will operate, the types of impacts it might have, the types of benefits it might have. And in many cases, those issues require some further study that the applicant is prepared to commission and provide in the context of a public hearing, which of course would be held with respect to both the text amendment and if the text amendment were to require, for example, that this be a special use during the public hearing for the special use as well. And so the applicant would have the opportunity to provide you with a more substantive response with reports from experts to help address some of the questions in more detail than the applicant is in a position to do tonight. And of course, at those hearings, the neighbors would also have the opportunity to express their concerns. And I think that would facilitate the kind of dialogue that some of you have described. I will say that on the applicant's part, through a process like that, we'd be committed to working with the city and with its attorney to try to find a middle ground that everybody can say yes to. And in that event, would obviously be prepared to document whatever is approved in great detail so that the city would have a great degree of control over the use at that location compared to the somewhat less defined situation that currently exists. So I just wanted to underscore that even if you were to say yes tonight, there'd be a whole process yet to unfold pursuant to which we would answer your questions in more detail and hopefully be able to work with you and the neighbors to come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you know, this is the committee of the whole, so there's no final anything tonight. It's more just, do we want to continue to talk about this? Councilmember Bloomberg, and then we'll certainly let the public speak until 7:30.
Thank you. Just to clarify with Corporation Counsel, the application for a text amendment would actually be an application by the City Council. The City Council would submit this to the Plan Commission.
That's right, and it would be, I presume that if you were to even consider having a text amendment, you would contemplate this be a special use as opposed to a permitted use. At least that would be my recommendation to you.
Use.
And we would allow the applicant or the property owner to concurrently petition for that special use so that the hearings and the process could be consolidated.
Right. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and your application for the text amendment could have as many restrictions as you want in there, including limiting it so that it can't be practically used elsewhere, such as a text amendment that can only apply on properties that are 7.5 acres or have access in a different location as opposed to a public street or something, some sort of threshold that you would put in as a governor to the text amendment itself. Those are all things that you can consider. Just want to put that on the table.
I appreciate that. And the reason I asked is that I, with all due respect, I don't feel compelled by what you've proposed that I would want to vote in favor of asking our Plan Commission to consider a zoning text amendment for us, not because I don't like the general idea, but because it's so indefinite. And that's why I don't personally feel compelled. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. With that, if neighbors do want to share your comments, we have 20 minutes. You'll be limited to 3 minutes apiece, and I ask that there be no applause or any other response other than stating your name, stating your opinion, and having a seat. Thank you.
Yes, hi. My name is Alex Leonoff. I live at 2670 Point Lane, which is right next to Mr. Cooper's gate. Dear Mayor and members of the City Council, This public comment is co-authored by the residents most directly impacted, those living on Point Lane and Museum Drive, collectively known as Architecture Point, to address Mr. Cooper's proposal to convert Michael Jordan's former property into a commercial tour business within their neighborhood. It is important to provide some background to ensure everyone has a full understanding of the events following Mr. Cooper's purchase of the property, the repeated efforts to commercialize it, and why he's only now seeking public support. Context that is essential to evaluating this proposal. We fully agree with the staff report that Mr. Cooper is seeking to create a tourism business in the middle of a beautiful, quiet residential enclave currently zoned under R2 zoning ordinance. Throughout this year, Mr. Cooper has pressured Architecture Point residents into accepting his commercialization plans. Only after multiple failed efforts did he pivot to a new strategy, one designed to appear community-oriented in order to garner public support to try to dilute the opposition of the immediately impacted neighbors. The following outlines what has transpired in the last year. In Q4, Mr. Cooper purchased the property for $9.5 million and incurs over $1 million annually in operating expenses. From the outset, he viewed the property as a business venture, estimated its commercial value at over $1 billion, and never intended to occupy it as a residence. His primary home remains in Lincolnshire. Unlike prior prospective buyers, Mr. Cooper sought no neighborhood or community input before purchasing and proceeding unilaterally. In Q1, Mr. Cooper first introduced his first planned commercial plan to introduce 52 fractional owners at $1 million per share, up to 25 additional guests per owner who would be allowed to host events. The city temporarily blocked the plan pending review of timeshare zoning implications and community impact. Mr. Cooper then introduced a second commercial proposal privately to his neighbors, a sports-themed museum in the middle of R2 residential neighborhood, projecting 500,000 to 800,000 paid visitors per year, comparing it to Elvis Presley's Graceland, and claiming it would generate $80 million in revenue. He invited the neighbors with the city representatives to present this proposal at his property, in which he pitched the idea of shuttling 30 visitors a day, 30 visitors every 15 minutes, 9 hours a day, 365 a year. The neighborhood responded with a unanimous and unequivocal opposition to any commercialization, citing traffic, noise, litter, security, and significant property value concerns. Mr. Cooper then altered his plans and began offering commercial incentives to neighbors, proposing co-ownership in this venture with a 1% share of profits, and even suggesting various schemes in which he would purchase neighboring properties at multiples of their market value, but only if he was first allowed to rezone his property.
My name is Michael Fridus, F-R-I-D-U-S-S. I live at 1555 Museum Drive, just adjacent to 2700 Point Lane. In the second and third quarter of 2025, after receiving negative impact on the museum plan and being unable to advance the timeshare plan, Mr. Cooper began pressuring neighbors through a series of documented threats. These emails are on record with city management. In May of 2025, he emailed the entire block stating that unless the neighborhood accepted his Graceland proposal, he would aggressively pursue the timeshare model, which would be more disruptive. Quote, in this letter, Mr. Cooper presented neighbors with two alternative paths forward. He stated, quote, the status quo is no longer an option with this property, and encouraged residents to consider, quote, which one of my proposals gives you some benefits and adds value to your property versus the one that might give you daily heartburn. He further stated that if you're required to redirect resources towards legal action, it would be, quote, unclear how my currently planned use may affect future home values in the neighborhood, which scared us. Neighbors reiterated their position, no commercialization of any kind, and disengaged with Mr. Cooper because of the confrontational ultimatums presented in his proposal. Mr. Cooper then escalated and stated he would, quote, do whatever is necessary to recoup his investment and prepare for a years-long battle with anyone opposing him. In a subsequent letter, Mr. Cooper adopted an even more confrontational tone with the neighbors and outlined specific actions he would take if the neighbors did not support his plans. He said that if dialogue did not continue, he would pursue zoning relief, adding that the chips will eventually just fall where they may. He asserted that opposition from immediate neighbors should not outweigh what he described as benefits to the larger community, characterizing residents as a small group of residents. He further explained that while these matters could take years to play out, he would be interim use for the property, a variety of short-term rentals, 30-day plus rentals, parties, and charity events, noting that such events would occur weekly, involve hundreds of people, and perhaps up to 50 vehicles parking on site. And over the summer, Mr. Cooper followed up on his threats, hosting large-scale events weekly, 50 to 30 attendees per event, loud music, heavy traffic, buses, and hundreds of strangers entering a quiet residential enclave. One event with shuttle buses every 15 minutes lasted 6 hours, with some guests departing at 2 a.m. More than a dozen such events occurred and repeatedly required police intervention. Ultimately, the city informed Mr. Cooper he must cease these events and apply for appropriate zoning relief if he wished to operate a private event venue.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Cameron Hari. I live at 1530 Museum Drive in Highland Park in the Architecture Point neighborhood with my wife Roxana and my two sons, Ryan and Kyle, ages 9 and 7. In communication with both neighbors and the city, Mr. Cooper has framed his current proposal primarily as a charitable, community-based development initiative. The major logistical change in relocating the property's access point through the Heller Nature Center, ostensibly to alleviate traffic and security concerns as previously raised. However, this characterization is really quite misleading. Over 90% of the proposed use remains commercial as an essential core of what we're talking about with the Highland Park Residential Code. Identical in structure to the prior plans, as the council already knows about and have been discussed again by my neighbors. These are paid tours, hundreds of thousands of annual visitors if the plan accordingly goes to Mr. Cooper's wishes, and in speculation, continuous shuttle operations, 30 visitors every 15 minutes year-round. Only a small fraction, less than 10% or so approximately, relates to the nonprofit or community programming, of which we still don't know anything about. Additionally, routing all patrons through a public forest preserve, it raises new and serious concerns, including safety, security, environmental impact, and significant disruption to the users of the nature center. The same fundamental issues remain. To our neighbors, noise and safety. To our children, safety, security, and visibility into private residences that are immediately adjacent, that share the gate and the fence with the property in question. Incompatibility with the character and zoning intent of Architecture Point, Maver Lane, Ridge Road, and all properties bordering the forest preserve. There's been a public campaign. Mr. Cooper has now begun soliciting public support by posting his proposal on social media groups, including that known as Deerfield Dads, where most participants are not Highland Park residents. He is engaged in a year-long campaign that is, at its core, a large-scale commercial utilization for the business, situated in the center of a residential neighborhood that was created and designed in the spirit of Highland Park to be a quiet enclave, a residential neighborhood, as was thoughtfully brought up by one of the council persons here. The reason the property was originally intended by its original owner was because of the non-commercialized use of the property and the quiet residential value of the neighborhood in Highland Park. Mr. Cooper's fourth proposal, but the first he has publicly presented for comment. He has now crafted an approach that may appear to outsiders as a genuinely charitable initiative, but in reality it is seeking to rezone a residential district and establish a commercial enterprise for his own financial and personal benefit, whether or not there is alternative benefit to the community of Highland Park. And I know my time is done. Thank you for your consideration for this matter. Respectfully, Alexander and Lana Ulyanov, myself, Cameron Hari, and my wife Roxana, Michael and Betsy Freitas, Dina and Kareem Nasra, Ronald and Sandra Nissan, Paula and Howard Serlin, and Tracy Marshbank, all neighbors here. Thank you for all of your very thoughtful comments. I'm sure you recognize where we stand on this as a neighborhood. And I do not feel that it is our obligation that we purchase the homes before the property of Mr. Cooper, Mr. Cooper's property was purchased.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
To be the ones to try to find a creative solution. That is not our property. That is not our responsibility.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Excuse me, my name is Mark Walton. I'm a resident on Maver Lane. And I'm going to speak with as many facts as I can. As you can see, I don't have prepared notes. I'm going to speak with some emotion as well. because I feel very strongly about this and very, very concerned about this, especially latest proposal. I've been concerned about it from the beginning, frankly, and I've talked to our friends over on Point and the other adjacent street about the various proposals. We've already been burdened by the noise and the nuisance that has gone on since Mr. Cooper acquired the property. But we're a constituent on Maver Lane, a constituency that hasn't been considered evidently by Mr. Cooper. I've never met him. I've never spoken to him. He's never reached out to me, to the best of my knowledge. Now, I need to understand the context of and the situation of physically geography of Maver Lane. So where his house is, it borders the Heller Nature Center path, and the other side of that path is my backyard. And that's Maver Lane, essentially. So I'm as close to Mr. Cooper's house as most of the people on Point and the adjacent street. So we hear the noise, and we're burdened by this as well. The very, very large concern I have is that I've had a lot of concerns. In addition to those concerns, this latest proposal suggests that this walking path, which goes directly by my backyard, is going to create a nuisance of hundreds and thousands of people within feet of my backyard. There's roughly 25 feet that separate the usable part of my backyard from the Heller Nature Center path, like 25 feet. There's about 50 yards to Mr. Cooper's backyard, and there's about 100 to 150 yards to his house. So it's very, very close. In the backyard, I have a pool, I have a playground, both of which are less than 100 feet from the Heller Nature Center path. I have 3 kids and 3 grandkids, 2 years and under, who play in the backyard. Our kids and friends swim in the pool. They're there in swimming trunks and bathing suits. The last thing that I want them to be is to be burdened by gawkers, thousands of them, running down a street and seeing and potentially infiltrating our yard, because there's no security. And even if there's a proposal to put up security, what are you going to do? Build a 20-foot fence that then restricts a lot of the other environmental impact issues that we've been talking about? On Maver Lane itself, people are going to go down Maver Lane to try to seek parking because they're just going to try to do it. They'll see no parking zones, but what's going to prohibit them from going down that street? Probably nothing. Our kids play on that street. Our neighbors' kids play on that street. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Simon. We do not live on, I'm sorry? Can you hear me? Hi, I'm Robert Simon. We do not live in Architecture Point. We do not live on Mavor. I'm going to be brief because I sat and listened to the discussion, the presentation, Mr. Cooper's presentation. You're proposing to have 40, 50 buses traipsing up and down Half Day Road and Ridge Road, which is not the traffic pattern right now. I listened to each of your comments and questions, and it appeared pretty clearly to me that all of you find a lot of reasons why this is a terrible idea, which it is a terrible idea. And as the meeting wound down after listening to this for about an hour, it sounds like certain members on the council are looking for ways to try and put lipstick on this proposal. And I would only submit that if you continue to pursue what looks to be a ridiculous idea and a bad proposal for the city and the community, and probably for Mr. Cooper, who's trying to bail out his investment, that you're just going to end up spending a lot of time and expense yourselves, your staff, and all the stakeholders. Where you initially said at the beginning of this segment, the city manager said, that there are 3 things that you can do. You can pursue it, you can develop it, you can approve it, I suppose, or you could just let it die a quiet death. And I'd submit that you'll save a lot of people and yourselves a lot of trouble and expense to just let this one die a quiet death. Because I'll be surprised if it goes anywhere. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public that wish to be heard, please come up. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable members of the City Council. My name is Claudia Martin. I had the opportunity to bring some youth out to the property. And it was an experience for them that was just life-changing, for them. So I'm here today to express my enthusiastic support for John Cooper's vision to transform this estate located at 2700 Point Lane into a world-class museum. This project not only celebrates the legacy of a Chicago icon, but also brings economic growth and opportunity to the Highland Park community. John has demonstrated a commitment to giving back to the youth, and this project aligns with the mission by sharing a path to greatness. Will inspire future generations and create a unique experience for visitors. So I come today to just urge you to approve the zoning request and support a project that honors Chicago's rich history and contributes to the city's vibrant culture. So let's work together to make this vision a reality. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Joe Seymour. I used to live in Highland Park, right on Tennyson Lane, for 13 years. I had the opportunity to buy my childhood home in Deerfield, so I did that, moved back home. But I still have many ties in Highland Park and care deeply about the community and my friends who still live here. I'm here tonight as both a former Highland Park resident and a parent. My daughter is in 8th grade at St. Norbert's in Northbrook, and she's currently taking a class called High School 101. The students have been studying the challenges that Michael Jordan faced when he entered high school and how those experiences shaped his growth. Their assignment is to write a paper reflecting on those lessons as they prepare for their transition into high school next year. When I heard about Champions Legacy initiative at the former Jordan estate, it struck me that there's a rare and meaningful educational opportunity here. This isn't about tourism, it's about connecting students to a real place tied to a story of perseverance, discipline, and character. Mr. Cooper has generously offered to allow my daughter's 8th grade class to visit the estate at no charge as part of their coursework. This would be a structured, supervised visit strictly for educational purposes. The goal is simply to give these kids a deeper, more memorable understanding of the lessons they're already studying in the classroom. As someone who raised children in Highland Park, I believe opportunities like this reflect the very best of what the community stands for, supporting young people, encouraging learning, and opening doors that help kids see what they can become. I'm here to respectfully ask the city to support Mr. Cooper's proposal, which I know now is just to submit that, zoning, and allow this iconic property to inspire the next generation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public who have come on forward, please? Thank you. And we are going to wrap this up at 7:30. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dina Nasser. I live on Museum Drive. Actually, my residence is my backyard. I have 2 young kids. My backyard butts up right against Mr. Cooper's place. Actually, one of the main entrance doors where a lot of those tourists would come and pass through. I don't really have a speech prepared, but I feel very strongly against this. It's really it's very scary to think that this small, quiet area and neighborhood where I know all of my neighbors, we have such a close-knit community, will now be turned into, frankly, a zoo. My family was burglarized a couple years back, and that experience left us very vulnerable. The thought of a large number of strangers coming in and out right next to our door brings us a lot of fear. I'm not opposed to growth or development, but it needs to be in a place where it makes sense, where the infrastructure is designed for it, and where it doesn't compromise the well-being of the families who already live there. please, please, I urge you to really consider the neighbors. We purchased this home to be a safe residential area. We didn't purchase the home to be next to a commercial museum that will be a detriment, honestly, to not only our safety and security, but also our property values, our home values. That's a big thing for us to consider. These are investments for us too. Our investments matter as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rich Levy. I'm a Highland Park resident most of my life. I grew up around the corner from this property, and I'm speaking in support of Mr. Cooper's position. Everywhere I've been in the world, when I tell people I'm from Highland Park, I get to tell them this is where Michael Jordan lives. This is a special place. 100-something years ago, the residents of this town decided to turn a field into a festival called Ravinia. It is the envy of every town in Chicago that we get to have Ravinia. We can do that here. And yes, there'll be noise. There's noise around Ravinia. There's safety issues. There's traffic issues. But the people that live, the property values around Ravinia, those are sacred. Can't touch that. We got a glimmer of brilliance of an athlete, a once in a lifetime, a universal athlete lived in this town. And Mr. Cooper has the vision to build something remarkable. And if we're going to shut it down just because we're afraid of a few neighbors, we don't have the mental capacity as a community to say we can solve this. It's a doable, we put a man on the moon in this country. We can make a Michael Jordan or a Champions Point facility that allows kids, not only in our community, but from far and wide to come here. And I'll tell you something else. There's not a Highland Park resident that I know that when they have guests that come in from out of town, they say, you know what, I'll take you to Michael Jordan's house. You get that picture of the 23, and they show it, and it's special. And we have that uniqueness here. So yeah, there's all kinds of challenges, and you're the council. This is my first time ever attending a meeting. I lived here, I'm 51. I didn't even know where this building was. I had to ask John for permission to come. But I'm grateful to speak, and I'm grateful to support this idea. And I live on a little cul-de-sac just like Architecture Point. And, I get it, folks, but let's make this happen. This is a great idea. It's worth pursuing. It's worth putting our heads together on. And I salute you, sir.
Thank you so much. So as I mentioned at the outset, this isn't a final, we're done with public comment. I'm so sorry because we were going to hard stop at 7:30 and we're past 7:30. So the question that needs to be asked is, do you want this to move forward in terms of having a city council conversation? And ma'am, you'll be welcome to speak then because it'll be a public hearing as well. And possibly move forward with proposing that the PDC take a look at it, or do you not want to move forward with that conversation?
Mayor, the city
ahead.
council meeting will be a public meeting, not a public hearing.
Absolutely.
Then later will be a public hearing if you go for it.
First a public meeting, then a
Right.
public
But a
hearing,
public
and
meeting
then
in which
more
comment
public
is allowed.
meetings will include public hearings and then be more public meetings, but you will have plenty of
There
opportunity
you-
as a public to talk about this issue if we do move forward. And so I am straw polling. Councilmember Center, do you want to move forward with having more conversation or not?
I do, for the reasons I mentioned before. I fully hear all the comments, and again, I think the bar is very high, and I appreciate all the feedback provided from all of you. This is not I'm in full support of the project. This is let's learn more and let's figure out if there's a way. Appreciate, again, all of you guys coming out and appreciate the presentation. So yes,
Thanks. Councilmember Brockwood.
I would say no, I'm not in favor of moving forward at all, based on everything I said earlier.
Thank you. Councilmember Ross.
I did want to say that I'm disturbed by the communication I heard through the public comment regarding what the neighbors described in terms of the communication. And I want to say I was as big a fan of Michael Jordan as anyone, but this is just one man, not Ravinia, not a storied musical festival. I think just so many reservations about this project that I am not foreseeing being able to eventually support this. At the same time, I feel like it sounded, talking to the city manager, like there was an opportunity to discuss this more for city council. I feel like I need a little more time with this. So that's where I'm at.
Yes, you would like to discuss it
I
more?
would like to discuss it more, but I just being very open here about how I feel about it right now.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Councilmember Tapia?
Yeah, I stand by what I said earlier, and I like the neighbors to know that their presentation was very helpful and very heartfelt and very well argued. And it's in that spirit that I think just there's a big decision in front here, and the stakes are high. And I think I'd like to just spend a little bit more time as a city, just looking at all the options, fully aware of what is at stake here.
Okay. Councilmember Littlewood?
Yes, I'd like to go through our processes and research it and find out. if there's anything
Councilmember
there.
Blumberg?
No.
Okay, thank you. I too am a no, but the majority rules, so it looks like we will have more public meetings and potentially a public hearing on this conversation. And I just want to thank all the neighbors. Your emails were appreciated, the supporters as well. Your emails were appreciated. It's an interesting dilemma that we have in front of us. I, for one, would like to see more charitable than for-profit. Not that I have a problem with making money, but I also think if you're going to purport to be about charity, it needs to be more than 13%. But all of that notwithstanding, the security, welfare, and public safety of the community is our highest priority. So with that, I leave you with an inconclusive outcome of this conversation. And with that, I am
Mayor,
calling.
I'm
Yep,
so sorry.
ma'am.
If I could just add one thing. If you sent us an email, we have your email, and we'll let you know when this is added to a city council agenda. If we do not have your email, if you can provide it to us, if you'd like to be kept apprised of this initiative, and we'll definitely notify you when it's on the next public agenda.
Mayor?
Yep.
I would like to, I would like to hear something from the Park District. I'd like to hear.
When it's referred.
When we have
Well,
that conversation, then we can certainly hear what their input is as well. I would expect them to participate in that conversation, no question. And with that, I'm seeking a motion to adjourn Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out this evening.